Okay, so our next game we're going to talk about is Worms Armageddon for multiple platforms. It was...
I think it was like PC, N64, Game Boy Color, PS1, maybe Dreamcast? I'm not sure on that last one.
Dreamcast, I believe. Yeah. It was nominated by at Big Bang Blitz on Twitter. I think it was one of the... I can't remember when it was nominated. I think it was one of the earlier nominations we got. So thank you, Big Bang Blitz. No relation to the Ballroom Blitz. I know very little about this game. I've played a Worms game, but it was quite a while ago. So I'll let you guys sort of take over.
I could introduce the series real quick. Worms started as a series in about 1995. The original one was for Amiga before being quickly ported to systems like the PC, PS1, Saturn, and so on. Worms Armageddon is about, I want to say, the third mainline release, and about 20 of them by now, by the time of this recording. And it is generally agreed by most fans of the series to be the best one.
Why is it specifically the best, would you say? Just that it has the most stuff offered for it?
Well, the new ones, the ones that you'll find on Steam, they kind of keep adding features, but they just kind of get a little bloated. They kind of remove features that people kind of want, like, say, having 8 worms in a team. The new ones don't let you do that. And it's just, I guess you could kind of say it's more pure that way. It doesn't bloat itself with features you don't really need, like a big single-player campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a dedicated multiplayer game for the most part.
You don't have to worry about, like, DLC or different classes like the new ones have.
They have new classes? Like, classes? I didn't know that in the new ones.
Yeah.
I didn't touch them. That's actually kind of insane. So, I mean, yeah, like, this is all the worms in Worms. It's an artillery game. You just randomly position on a 2D map, and you shoot at each other with various weapons until there's no worms... Well, until there's one team left standing, if you... generally.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's got the team play mechanic in it. It's basically like Scorched Earth or Cannon Fodder. But with, like, a bunch of added bells and whistles.
I don't think that's it's a top...
Yeah, that's a top
it's an ISO game.
deal.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Cannon Fodder. What am I thinking
though.
I'm probably thinking
I mean,
like
there'd be like a Shara game called Cannons and Tank Cannon and just like, Gorillas, I think is what you're thinking of, maybe. The QBasic game where you're monkeys and you throw, gorillas and you throw bananas at each other. That's...
I remember mine was the whatever DOS version that I was playing was called Banana, and I found it really strange because why would bananas explode?
Wait, are we talking about QBasic?
He is, but he had a version of it that had been renamed Banana.
Not that it matters.
But yeah, no, it's like if you've played one of them, you have absolutely exactly know how they all function because they're almost functionally the same. I think the difference with Worms, Bob, you can confirm if I'm correct here. Worms, you don't choose how fast your like shot comes out. You have like this kind of like bar that goes up and down. And you have to time it, if I remember correctly, or it goes just up.
Right, some weapons work like that. You can change how far you throw, which determines how fast it comes out and how far it'll move.
Like, it's not like most artillery games they used to, you just, you enter like a number, like you said, oh, I want to fire it at 78 power, whereas Worms, it's a lot more, like, you just kind of like...
It's more like a golf game,
it's got that golf sort of mechanic where it's just like, start charging, activate. You can't just repeat the same shot unless you've got good timing.
Well, I think also really notable things about Worms is that, you know, you're not just using the basic arcing shell shot. There are a lot of different types of weapons and tools you can use, like
right. There's like something that's kind of like the like
baseball bat.
it's the remote missile, right?
Yeah, Hadouken and Shoryuken. I think the games have some of those have those.
They were. I think they might have been introduced in Worms 2. A lot of the weapons were in Worms 2. Worms 1 had only a few weird weapons. You know, I think it had the sheep. And it had, like, cluster bombs, and maybe even banana bombs, I think. It was the second game where they introduced a lot of new weapons, and Armageddon was where they really went nuts and really threw in, like... Oh, I can't even remember, like, there's, like, the giant metal donkey or stone donkey or something that just falls through the whole map, if I remember correctly. It's been a little while since I played Armageddon. And also the ninja grappling hook was a big part of Worms. That was one of their big inclusions, was that you can fire a sort of grappling hook that lets you traverse pretty much the entire randomly generated map, and that was a lot of fun for people to dick around with.
It's really fun to use when you can do it right, but it's like perfectly capable of just screwing you over and just throwing you right into the water or into a mine.
Yeah, which I think was a big part of the Worms games, is just... It's not really perfect. You kind of make funny mistakes, and your weapons just cause chaos, and everything goes insane. Also, there's water that usually floats up to drown all the worms if you take too long. So that's a lot of fun.
It's like Lemmings if you're trying to kill each other, more or less. Kinda.
Worms is basically like the anti-Lemmings, I'd say.
Yeah, I just sort of get a Lemmings-esque vibe from its geography, which has a lot of weird stuff that you're fighting on. I think you can actually, kill, camels and old ladies with all your explosions, but they're just part of the background, so they're not technically living entities. I don't know, it's really strange how that works.
I'm pretty sure that you can actually use, your own images as levels if you wanted to use...
Yeah, definitely some games had that.
Say a terrible webcomic, go for it.
Yeah, that was... I do expect that would have been introduced in Armageddon. I don't think that was in Worms 2. Someone can correct me on this.
I don't know. I have to admit I'm kind of a scrub with Worms when it comes to Bob, and probably you too, Cal. But I do really like the look of the series. They're a little more slow-paced than what I usually look for in a game, but I appreciate their humor and their rather colorful design and all the different stuff that you can do. But they are also pretty simplistic, which certainly isn't bad against them. I don't know. Go ahead, Bob.
I'd say they're kind of simple to learn, but there is some strategy, and you kind of at times do know what you should be doing. You do have to deal with wind. That can be important. You need to know where you can be to avoid getting counterattacked, things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not completely random, and you can make it a little more strategic for the options you want to.
No, it basically is like a 2D strategy game, I guess you could say, in a way. Because something else I realized is that the targets all have health points. So unless you hit them with a Giga Nuke, they're not going to die in a single turn. So you have to make sure you know how to strike at them without putting yourself in too much danger.
Having said that,
right.
the water is an instant death, and worms get flung across when they get hit by certain weapons. So there's a kind of a balance between weapons that do damage and weapons that give velocity to your worms. There's a kind of a strategic element to how you use your weapons as well. And the baseball bat, which
right.
lets you just fling a worm if you get right next to him way in a direction, I always enjoyed that when I was a kid.
And sometimes part of the strategy is making sure you're buried in somewhere you can't get knocked back. That's when you're safe. But then there are always ways people can bury down to you where you can't get away easily, so it's kind of a trade-off.
I mean, it's certainly a solid strategic game, and Armageddon is probably the best one. I haven't played all the new ones. I actually think I stopped somewhere around the Xbox 360 release, which was kind of a streamlined game. I think that was based on the DS version. But they also went 3D, which was a terrifying nightmare, and don't bother playing the 3D ones. Oh, you could, but I wouldn't.
Hey, I remember another worm that went 3D, if you catch my drift. An earthworm, named Jim, no less. And we all know how that turned out, so, yeah, I forgot there was a 3D installment. Should I not look that up? I feel like my eyes are going...
No, they actually looked okay. The big problem is the first... I don't think they did a good job of having destructible environments, and it's also very difficult to play a Worms game in 3D. It kind of loses a lot of the mechanics. The way they work don't quite function the same way, because you can't just make that game 3D.
Aiming's a lot harder. Swinging around is a lot harder.
Yeah.
Worms Ultimate Mayhem, I see.
Some of them are okay.
This looks like Banjo-Kazooie, I don't...
But fortunately, they aren't what we're talking about. We've got Armageddon, and that one is pretty great. I think Bob's one has got the most expert opinion on it, but...
I am a huge fan because people who buy our books, and you should buy our books, quote the critic, thank you, would know that I have actually placed Worms Armageddon in the top 200 best games of all time of that book, and I still stand by that statement.
Well, I would definitely agree that Worms is a great crystallization of the artillery genre, and the only game that, I guess not even an artillery game, but I really like Death Tank as well, but it's a completely different game, but it fits in the similar sort of slightly looser artillery game, since the most basic ones are very numbers. You just put in numbers and try and work out what way the wind is going, and just kind of dry games. But should we rank it? Should we put Worms somewhere? Is that where we should go with this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I'll kind of let Bob take the lead.
Alright, let me think on this. I'd put it pretty high, honestly. I might be a bit biased.
I'm not going to dispute it, even though I really haven't played as much Worms Armageddon as much as I could. But, it seems quality. It seems to have a lot of personality, a lot of options, a lot of maps, and I think is going to be probably more fun with at least one human player, but it's still very enjoyable no matter how you slice it.
How would you feel about between Alien Soldier and Space Harrier?
I wouldn't complain about that. That's a pretty reasonable mark.
Let me see. Alien Soldier is currently,
Number 7.
Well, it'd be number 8.
No, number 6, you mean. It's the 6th best.
Oh, yeah, 6, yeah, that's right.
We always get confused by this. We're not great. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, it's kind of a fault of Google's list system.
I mean, look, the reason is, this is pretty much, what we have here is pretty much the best or most well-regarded Worms game, with tons and tons of options and features. It's really, it's basically very difficult not to have fun with this, and it's a brilliant multiplayer game. And I think you can play this with, because it's turn-based, you can play this with, 8 people or something if you want, if you really want to go, that way.
It's a game that's still played pretty often multiplayer, because, they're still selling on Steam for quite a bit, so they still patch and everything to make sure it works on our computer, so there's still a decent fan base, I'd say.
It's the only way Team 17 makes any money.
Yeah, if they quit making Worms games, they go bankrupt in a day, because no one wanted Alien Breed.
Think about that as a franchise. It's been keeping Team 17 afloat for 2 decades. That's a hell of a franchise.
Yeah, only unlike with Natsume and Harvest Moon, this is actually an idea I can get behind, so... it came out of left field. I do love me some Space Harrier, but I'm not going to argue with you on this one. I just feel disappointed myself. I don't know nearly as much about Worms as you guys do, but I really like how they look, and, any non-Capcom game to have Hadoukens in it without getting sued is okay by me.
See, the thing is, because I know Xerxes, he often has, a hypothetical weighting to just, which would you rather? I'm pretty sure Worms would win a hell of a lot of those compared to a lot of games, because it's got so much replayability, it's got so much stuff, it's got so much multiplayer, it's got, so many things that are well, I'd probably prefer it than most other games, because it's really got a lot of I know this is going to get me shot, but in some ways it has this sort of that same sort of feel that a MOBA or something has, where there's so many combinations of weapons and abilities, and also because the maps are randomly generated, it just really works as a game that you can play again and again.
I'd say it's more approachable than MOBA too. Once you learn the controls, it's a pretty easy game to play. Everything kind of is kind of self-evident.
Okay, so it sounds like the consensus choice here is Bob's original suggestion, which is right between Alien Soldier
I'm really
Space
sad
Harrier.
to put something above Space Harrier. That's I always feel bad about putting something above Space Harrier.
But I think you yourself made the strongest case for it, which is that, Space Harrier is great.
Yeah.
It's a cool looking game. Everybody basically likes it or loves it. But the replayability, it's just not there. Unless you're a super fan that you just are obsessed with Space Harrier, you're going to play it once or twice.
Yeah, well, that's really the thing about it.
You might return to it later in life if you feel like you just want to, but it doesn't even have the same score attack aspect to it that other arcade games that
it does have a score, but it's not really worth it.
Right. It's not. It doesn't feel like the same.
No, you just kind of shoot things and hope for the best. It's not really a...
Right. The thrill is just that it looks really cool and you can, get through the whole game.
Best thing about Space Harrier is that it's technically impressive, I'd say.
Well,
it's not
atmospherically
bad
and technically impressive.
It's not bad.
But
yeah. Okay. So I think we can all live with that.
If it was any other Worms game, I might set it slightly lower. But this is the best Worms game of a franchise that's going for.
This is the best.
Let me just ask. Armageddon has the concrete donkey, right?
I was trying to mention the concrete donkey, but I call it the steel donkey and the stone donkey, but it's a concrete donkey. Thank you for correcting me.
You get to insta-kill opponents by plummeting a donkey statue on their head. That's pretty amazing. I cannot argue with that.
I can't believe we got through a whole Worms discussion
Okay,
without mentioning
so-
a holy hand grenade.